Dearly beloved, we are gathered here today to go over the final books on my physical TBR. So it is happening. June should be the month in which I reach 0 TBR. So it's been a long process. I think in November 2019 is when I really digitalized my physical TBR. So I made sure that everything was on Goodreads. I made sure I had all of these books in a spreadsheet at that point in time. And so since then I have been slowly chipping away at that physical TBR in order to really ramp up the energy this year and get to my goal, which is 0 TBR. So without further ado, let's just dive into the final 8 books that I have to finish in order to reach 0 TBR. So the month of June is not only the month in which I will be reaching 0 TBR, it is also the month for whateverathon. So whateverathon is a readathon hosted by Maddie from Book Browsing Blog. It is divided into teams. Basically you can read whatever you want, that's why it's called Whatever You Want-a-thon. You kind of set your own goal. In my case, my goal is going to be 8 books because my goal is going to be finishing these particular books, finishing my physical TBR. If I read more than that, then so much the better, but my real goal is just finishing that TBR. So I don't mind if this is all that I'm going to be reading this month, and so that's why I set my goal at 8. I will be joining the team of TBR travelers basically because these team specific prompts just fit best with my actual TBR. So first up, let me just go through the books, and then at the end I'll kind of indicate which books will serve for which particular prompt in the readathon. It is also Junosaur, which is a Patreon specific readathon hosted by Sasha from the Wild Sasha. I have not really worked out what I'm going to do for that particular readathon, so I won't actually be talking about that one within this video, but I will definitely be taking part in that one, probably a little bit more low-key than with whateverathon. So 8 books still left in 1 month. That it potentially could be a little bit high because most of the months within this year I haven't reached that amount of books, but as you might know, I'm reading from my longest books down to my shortest books. So these are 8 under 400 page books that I still have left, so I'm thinking that I should be able to do that without much problems because it is basically just 200-500 pages in total, just over, but basically more or less 2,500. So in no particular order, these are the 8 books that I have left to read. First up, we have The Enchanted April by Elizabeth von Arnim, which of course would have been more ideal to read in the month of April, but I was reading only translated fiction in the month of April, so this one did not fit that particular thematic way of structuring my reading months. The Enchanted April is a book that takes place in Italy, I believe. I think it is 4 women who are in the 1920s, I believe, going to some villa in Italy on a holiday. I don't know more about this one, let me tell you, it's basically just a cover buy. I have these editions for some of Daphne du Maurier's work and I really like them, and so I wanted to get something else and try out some other women writers because all of the books within this collection are by women writers, and so I wanted to try out a new writer like that. So this one, Elizabeth von Arnim, I've never read anything about her. I'd actually never heard about her until I was looking into this collection, so hopefully a new author I can explore more from in the future. And then we have a book that was actually on my May TBR, but I didn't get around to it. I mean, it is still May. I still have 3 days left, but I'm going to be realistic. And so I'm finishing an under 300 page book instead of this one, just because I think it's a little bit more feasible. So I still have Meanwhile in Dopamine City by DBC Pierre left. This is another one of those books that has made it on multiple TBRs and that I never seem to get around to. But June is going to be the month for it, finally. So Meanwhile in Dopamine City is basically kind of going to discuss differences between generations and between, ways in which different generations have been brought up. So we are looking at a single father who will be getting estranged from his daughter, I think, throughout this book, as he feels like his daughter is getting more and more sucked into the world of social media. This book also has quite weird formatting towards the second half, where it's like in columns. Don't know what that is going to be about, but yeah, I'm looking forward to finally getting around to this one. Next up we have Northwest by Zadie Smith. I have read another Zadie Smith in TBR Zero Project and I really enjoyed this one. I don't actually know what Northwest is about. I do know that it's set in the city of London. I love going to London, and so I like having that familiar setting. to my books. And as I said, I really enjoyed the writing style of her book Swing Time, and so I'm looking forward to what this particular book is going to be about, and to exploring another one of her works and figuring out whether I want to read more by her or not. Next up, a book I kept myself from buying for quite a while until it was nominated for the Booker Prize, and then I thought, okay, now I'm going to read it, but still we managed to wait almost 2 full years until we finally got around to it, and that is Such a Fun Age by Kylie Reid, which was longlisted or maybe even shortlisted for the Booker Prize in 2020, I believe. So Such a Fun Age has definitely done its round on BookTube. Quite a lot of people have read it, and it's apparently a book that can kind of make white readers uncomfortable because it talks about sort of like performative allyship. The one thing I know about the story is that basically the way that it's constantly being sold or marketed is that we are looking at a black character who is a nanny to a white family, and so one day she takes the child to the grocery store and she's accused of having abducted the child. But if I hear, like, it's been a while since I've heard anybody talk about this one, but I believe that I saw quite a few people say that that is really just one incident at the very beginning of this book, and it kind of gives misleading idea that, you know, it's going to be about this black woman on the run from the authorities, but it's very much more about the reaction of white people around her to that incident, and it's very much just sort of like the you know, the starting incident, the incident that sets the ball rolling, but it's definitely not going to be the focus of this entire book. Next we have An Artist of the Floating World by Kazuo Ishiguro. This is at this point in time the shortest book left on my TBR. Don't actually remember what it is about. It is set in post-World War II Japan. I don't know more about this, but I do know that it's one of the favorite Ishiguros that Books and Bao has read, and so I really love their channel, and so I'm hoping that I'm going to have a great time with this one, because I've only read 2 Ishiguros at this point in time. I've read Never Let Me Go, and I've read the new one, Clara and the Sun, and I enjoyed both of these, but I wouldn't mind getting another great one in by him and then potentially reading more of his work. I might have also read The Buried Giant, but I'm not entirely sure. If I did, I didn't enjoy that one as much. Next we have Butcher's Crossing by John Williams. I did this year still, I think? No, last year. Last year I read another John Williams for my Zero TBR project, and I did not have a great time with that one, sadly. So, I mean, I enjoyed it just fine, but it was just that, you know, it was just okay, and I didn't feel like reading a just okay book. I didn't see it going anywhere that, you know, it would be a 5-star or even a 4-star for me, so I ended up putting it down, which is a real shame because I bought Butcher's Crossing and Augustus, the book that I put down at that point in time, after having finished Stoner, and I absolutely loved Stoner. I wouldn't mind rereading it actually. And so I'm hoping that with Butcher's Crossing I'm going to have another really great experience with John Williams's writing. So this is a book set in Alaska, I believe, and I think we have some sort of a person who used to be a professor at some sort of a university, and he's kind of abandoning that life in order to go into the wild, in order to go to Alaska and live a completely different life, hunting for buffalo, I believe. And so I'm assume that it's like about man versus nature, and kind of about the way in which, you know, people in urban settings, for example, kind of idealize the life of simple folk, the life in the countryside, the life that is closer to nature, and how they are unprepared for the reality of actually living that life. But I could be completely wrong about that. I haven't heard anybody talk about Butcher's Crossing, so I don't actually know too much, but that's kind of what I'm expecting based off of the synopsis. Based off of the synopsis at the back. Next we actually have a book that counts for 3, but I'm only counting it as 1, and that's the New York trilogy by Paul Auster. This is kind of mystery, crime, experimental novel. I have read the first one of these. I have read City of Glass, but I will definitely be rereading it. Is it called City of Glass? Yeah, it is called City of Glass. So I've read the first one, and I really enjoyed it, even though I'm really not a mystery thriller type of a reader, but I really like the experimental tone of this work. So City of Glass basically starts with a mysterious phone call that kind of sets the ball rolling. And I cannot really describe this book because it's been too long. And all I know is that it was really interesting, fascinating, experimental language, and there is also a graphic novel adaptation for this one that puts that experimental language into really bizarre imagery. I really enjoyed City of Glass, and I was debating not continuing because it had been such a while, and I was like, do I even really like it? But then I put it in my sort of like try chapter tag when I was doing my unhaul in 2021 maybe, or maybe in 2020, I don't fully remember which unhaul that was. And when I reread the first chapter of City of Glass, I was like, yeah, I really love the writing style of this one, so I do really want to give it another go and continue on with the rest of the trilogy. And then the final book on this TBR is Mole Flanders by Daniel Defoe. This is a classic all about a loose woman, so to say, but based on the synopsis, it kind of feels like it is not going to go down the condemning route of her life choices. She's basically a woman who was born in prison, and as she got a really bad start to life, and a start to life that really gave her almost no opportunity, no chances for improvement, she will also have to at some point in time make the decision to sell her body in order to survive. And so it seems like this book is kind of condemn a society that, you know, abandons its women, that makes its women make choices like this in order to survive. So yeah, I'm hoping that that is going to be the way that this book unfurls, but if it's not, then I can always put it down. But so yeah, that is it. If I finish all of those books, then I will have reached 0 TBR. Now, in the month of June, I'm also going on holiday, so that's kind of, it could work out really good or it could work out to my detriment, you know. On holiday, you either get a whole lot of reading done or you get almost no reading done. We are definitely planning on going on quite a lot of hikes, for example, when we are in Madeira. But there definitely will be a mix of like hiking days and, you know, days of just chilling by the pool. So I'm pretty convinced that I will have time to read, even if we are gonna have quite an active holiday. But my goal is to get like most of this done before I go on holiday. So I leave the 18th. So I'm hoping to get a decent chunk of these books out of the way by that time, and then hopefully I still have time to fit in some like ebooks or something like that in the second half after I've hopefully finished 0 TBR with quite a few days to spare, because I also don't want to give myself the anxiety of, you know, last minute doing it before the 1st of July. But if I still need to finish something on the 1st of July, I will allow myself that. I am still on holiday that day. I'm gonna count it as an extension for my June if need be. But so as I said, I'm also joining whateverathon. I'm gonna quickly go over the books that I'm reading for that. I will have the visual on the screen somewhere, wherever I can fit it. And so the pink prompts are team-specific prompts. The white ones are general prompts, and the gray ones are sort of like book related prompts. You know, they're more like activity based prompts, and so for those ones I will fill them in throughout the month, but I'm not going to give you a book. So first up we have TBR veteran. Everything on this TBR can count for TBR veteran, so I'm not going to give you an answer for that. And this basically means that you need a book that has one of these words in the title. And you know, for that we can, for example, already count the New York trilogy. There's definitely more than we can count. An Artist of the Floating World. Probably quite a lot of these books can count for that, though there definitely are a few that don't neither. Under 300 pages, The Enchanted April, for example, An Artist of the Floating World, those are still under 300 pages. Recently hauled, I don't actually have something that for most people would actually count as recently hauled, but the two youngest books on my TBR at this point in time are Such a Fun Age and Meanwhile in Dopamine City, because I bought these one in 2020. Then we have color on the cover. I'm going to randomly generate a color for that. I'm not going to screen record because I'm just too lazy for that, but I will show you the result. It gave me, I don't know where you see that, gray, which Butcher's Crossing would fit, or the New York trilogy, or Mole Flanders has some gray as well on there. And I think, yeah, that would be it for color on the cover. Alright, then we have on a previous TBR, which, as I already referred to, Meanwhile in Dopamine City was on my May TBR, so I'm counting that one for that. There might be some other books that have been on some sort of a TBR in the past 2 years, but I'm not entirely sure of that, and I'm definitely sure of Meanwhile in Dopamine City. Then we have one that I cannot fill at the moment, which is Portal Fantasy. I don't have a Portal Fantasy. So if I get around to all of my TBR books, then potentially I will do a Portal Fantasy. For example, I can do the next book in the Shauna Maguire series, the sort of like Every Heart a Doorway series. I don't actually know what the second book is. Maybe Down Among the Sticks and Bones. But in any case, so if I have time, I can continue with that one because that's like a short read. Next we have favorite genres. So favorite genres are literary fiction, translated fiction, and fantasy. Don't have any translated fiction, don't have any fantasy on here, but there is quite a lot of literary fiction. You know, I think most of these would fit for literary fiction. Even we could say that the New York trilogy might fit because its experimental language might push it into literary fiction, but I think for the rest, almost all of these can kind of be considered literary fiction. I will not count Mole Flanders, for example, because it's a classic, and Butcher's Crossing is like a modern classic, but modern classics are also usually literary fiction, for example. So, I mean, I have quite a lot of options for literary fiction in any case. Next up we have adventure or quest. That is more difficult. But for that one, I'm guessing the New York trilogy then fits because our character is kind of going on an adventure or a quest to figure out what this mysterious phone call is about. I'm sure we can count this one. Then we have different formats. There are a few books on here that I have the audiobook for. I have the audiobook for The Enchanted April. I have the audio for An Artist of the Floating World, and I have the audiobook for Mole Flanders. A one-word title. For one-word title, there are two ways I can kind of go. So in the New York trilogy, the second book within this one is called Ghosts, which is a one-word title. So I could count these three separately for whateverathon. And secondly, I could go with Northwest. So it is an abbreviation, and technically if you spell it out fully, it's two words, I guess, but look, it looks like one word, the way it's written here, so I could count that one as well. Then we get to the problem, which is host fave. I don't have a host fave left on my TBR, so this is another one that potentially I will do after I have finished my TBR 0 project. And in that case, probably the smartest one will be Death Note, which is a manga volume, so that would be not too many pages to add. Then we have continuous series. I will definitely be counting these ones separately for that, so then I can use Ghost or the last one in the trilogy, which is The Locked Room, as continuations of a series. Last letter, first letter. This means that in your reading order, one of the books needs to have its first letter be the last letter of the book that you've just finished. And I need to figure out again, Such a Fun Age, I need to read after Mole Flanders, for example. Did I have another book that it would work after? No. So these are the only two that are an option. So I have to read these in order. First Mole Flanders and then Such a Fun Age in order to be able to count as prompts. Then we have GP and S on the cover. So for this one, I do need a little bit of help from like the small text that is on the front cover, and so I'm happy that I have quite a few prizes that can help me with the P letter. So I have An Artist of the Floating World, which has the G, the P from the Booker Prize over here, and the S of an artist, Ishiguro, whatever. So yeah, Such a Fun Age also works because, you know, you have S, you have the G, and here in one of these sort of little quotes about the book, somebody put, which has the P. And then the final one that worked for this was also one with a prize on it. So I think it was Northwest, which has the S over here, the P in prize, and then just need the G. Where was the G? Grazia. So these three books have all three letters on their cover, though of course none of them has them solely in the title and in the author's name, but it just said on the cover, right? So it works. Then we have a poll. For that one I will just choose a few of these books and put a Twitter poll on there, and then I will count whoever wins from that poll for the poll prompts. And then we have a less read genre. So for that one, we can count the New York trilogy again, because as I said, mystery thriller. And then we have middle grade, which I don't have, so potentially I need to find an extra book for that. And then finally we have a 2021 release, which I hadn't realized was a prompt. 2021 release, of course, as I said, the most recently hauled books on here are from 2020, so I don't have a 2021 release. But this is why, so over this week I met Sarah from Voyaging Worlds, and she was talking about having to put Evershore by Brandon Sanderson on her TBR. I think she put it on in the end for different format, but she will also count it for 2021 release, and so I might actually finally get around to reading it. I started it at the end of the year, but I didn't finish it before 2022 started, and so I just put it down at like 18%. So yeah, I have not really been enjoying Skywards from Cytonic onwards, so I'm hoping that Evershore is going to be another good one, and that it's just a matter of me, you know, having taken a little bit of distance from Skyward for a while, and so hopefully Evershore can make me excited about the fourth book in the series again. But so yeah, if need be, that's going on there. So I think there are potential 4 extra books that I need to add if I really want to finish the bingo board. But as I indicated, getting to 0 TBR is my main priority. If I have extra time, I will look into potentially adding something else, but you know, it's not my main priority, and for that reason I don't necessarily care too much about missing out on these bingos, for example. But so yeah, that is it for my TBR. This is yeah, it's coming, you know, guys. I am gonna be done with this whole project, and I cannot wait to be done with it, because I am really at this point in time starting to look into, you know, books that I want to buy, and you know, that whole idea of like, once I reach your TBR, it's getting so close, so that it's just also becoming somewhat more difficult to contain myself. But I will be super happy when on the 2nd of July I can go into a bookstore and buy all the books that I want to buy. Not all of the books, because there are a whole lot of books that I want to buy, but I can at least really let loose and buy quite a few of them. But so yeah. Hope you guys enjoyed this video. Let me know if you know of any of these books, if you have an interest in any of those, what you will be reading in the month of June, and whether you're participating in whateverathon as well. But so yeah, with that I'm going to end this video. Hope you guys enjoyed it, and see you guys for the next one. Bye!